in a remote desert lab.
Stacking more has been developed to colonize within seconds.
A hazardous experiment gone horribly wrong.
Holy Jesus!
Unleashing a tidal wave of green terror. The infection grows.
How do I get this shit off of me?
The control agent hasn't been tested yet. If it's loose in here, it's only gonna get worse and fast.
We'll have to spray the whole place down. That stuff will kill you.
In science fiction color.
We're gonna try to get out of here. We have to be sure that we are free of infection.
Look at this.
I'm coming in!
A shocking display of blood and guts. Can anyone get out alive? Maybe.
I never put a lot of confidence in maybes. I prefer sure things.
Trapped.
I say we get the hell out of here before the shit spreads everywhere.
Betrayed.
Sabotage.
Mold.
This isn't science. It's murder.
My very special guest is the mastermind behind Mold. Director, writer, producer, Neil Meschino. How you doing, Neil?
I'm doing good, Ruben. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Anytime.
The reason why I have you on here mostly is because of Mold. You sent me a copy. I enjoyed it highly. I recommend it for anybody who likes the old 80s style horror. I have a motto for that movie, which I'll mention it later on. But if you want to talk about some of your earlier stuff, you're more in power to do so. I know that you have one from 2006, 'Twas the Night. If you want to talk about that, let the listeners get an idea about that and other projects, and then we get into Mold a little bit later.
Sure, yeah. Well, 'Twas the Night was one of my film school short films. I went to School of Visual Arts in Manhattan, and 'Twas the Night was actually the first film shot by the director of photography who did Mold. So that was my first time working with him.
Okay.
So it's got the same DP. And I remember when I picked him up, he didn't really know anything about it. Like, I didn't even get a chance to send him the script. It was kind of like just my original DP dropped out. He couldn't do it, so I had to find someone last minute. And I called him, and he was willing to do it. And I picked him up with a Christmas tree on my top of my van. And he's like, well, what the hell are we shooting? I'm like, it's a Christmas film. So I threw him the script in the back seat. He started reading it. He's like, what the hell is this? I'm like, Christmas film. It's got eyes being gouged out and people being stabbed and all kinds of disgusting, horrible things happening. I'm like, well, yeah, it's a Christmas film. But it happens to take place during Christmas. It's really kind of a minor background thing. But, yeah, so 'Twas the Night. It is really a slasher film. It's really the only slasher film I've ever made. I'm not really big into slasher films, but, yeah, it's definitely fun. It's in the vibe of all the other films I've done. They're not too serious, not taking themselves too seriously. I like to work comedy into everything I do.
Yep.
And, yeah, 'Twas the Night definitely has elements of that. I'll send you a screener of it.
Cool. Now, is there anything else that you've done before we get into Mold?
I've also done a black and white barbarian action comedy in a fictional language with English subtitles called Die by the Sword.
Oh, wow.
And that is another strange alternate universe comedy film. It's, barbarians and this, the comedy comes from the fictional language that I created. Actually scripted it and just, say mumbo jumbo in front of the camera, but, you've got just these weird words that I make up, like, and Gorchcock, and just having these characters say this over and over again was pretty goddamn hilarious, but it's got action, blood and guts, so it's got all the elements of horror. It's got, dark comedy. It's a fun movie. It's a short, it's flawed, it was like I definitely overreached it. It was only my second film I had ever made, but it's got a lot of merit to it, and I actually do want to expand it. I'm going to start writing a script for it this summer. I'm going to expand it to a feature.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
That it's like Conan the Barbarian meets every horrible, gory film you can ever imagine, just with, in a fantasy world, made-up creatures, and kind of like Lord of the Rings meets Conan meets Dead Alive, for lack of a better horror.
I've heard about Mold, and when I got it, I reviewed it, Well, watched it, of course, and reviewed it. And you know what my slogan was, right? And it caused a little controversy on Facebook. I'm not going to mention no names because it ain't worth it. But I called this thing a fucking gem. Now, I stick to them words because me being in my late 40s or early 40s, I grew up in the 80s horror. So I've seen all kinds of 80s horrors. Cheesy horrors, I love. Shit horrors, 80s horrors, I love. I'm just an 80s die-hard freak. And when I watch Mold, I've noticed... Now, like I said in my review, I didn't know if it was on purpose or not, but when I was watching this movie, I kind of like was flashing back to 1985. I mean, I really enjoyed this film. It had some comedy in it. It had some seriousness. It had some organs in the bathroom. It has everything that you want in a film. And the ending was basically left open, obviously. You know, a lot of people do that for a purpose. It's either a sequel or not a sequel. I mean, that's how the 70s movies did it. But Mold, if you want to, I know a lot of listeners have already listened to my reviews and a bunch of other reviews on this movie. But to hear from the director's mouth himself, do you want to give the listeners an idea about Mold? And if you got any funny stories that go along with it that happened while you're making it, feel free to chat away.
Right. Well, Mold is, and you insinuated that, you know, you weren't sure if I was doing that on purpose as far as the 80s throwback, but it was definitely on purpose. I mean, I set the movie in 1984, and all my favorite horrors come from the 80s. You know, I mean, not every one of them, but, you know, all the best ones in my mind, the most fun movies, the most memorable movies, and the best characters, they all come from the 80s. So, I mean, I always try to emulate that when I do horror.
I like
that.
I
mean, I set the movie in 1984, just, you know, specifically for that purpose. Actually, the 1984 setting had two purposes. One, I wanted to invoke the 80s horror films, and two, being a science fiction type of film, too. It's like sci-fi horror comedy. It's got elements of all three. I couldn't afford to have modern technology. There's just no way I can have, like, some kind of modern science lab and make it believable whatsoever. So, like, the only way I can do this was setting it in 1984 so that I can go to, like, thrift stores and buy cheap electronics and, you know, search around on eBay and just get a lot of crazy, wacky 80s electronics for next to nothing and fill the set with that. So it was out of necessity and also out of style.
Right.
Filmed it in the 80s.
but yeah, go ahead, sorry.
And I rented a warehouse on Long Island, and I built all the sets myself for a few months, you know, leading up to the shoot.
Right.
And, you know, that was also a necessity. It was, you know, I didn't want to, like, wait to the last minute trying to find a place where we can shoot it. And I never really had all the money at one time. It was kind of just like I was saving up to shoot the movie, but it was also like, you know, the movie cost around $40,000, but it's never like I had $40,000 at one time. You know?
Right.
So I couldn't pay someone $5,000 or $10,000 to shoot in their place. So it was just easier for me to rent a place and just try to work off that money monthly, build all the sets myself, and then that was quite the endeavor, let me tell you. But yeah, it worked out. I mean, I had total freedom in my own warehouse. There was no time we had to stop shooting, and there was, you know, nothing limiting us. It was just we had it all to ourselves all the time.
Right.
And, you know, I built like a loft in the back of the warehouse and put like 10 beds back there, so the whole cast and crew, we can all kind of just crash in the warehouse and, you know, we'll shoot all day and then crash and then shoot all day again and then go home. So we were showering every other day, even though we were cut limes the entire time. So, I mean, everyone was like miserable and loving it at the same time. I mean, the whole cast and crew were really into it, and it was a lot of fun making it. And we all really got along together. So it was a really good time. But it was just, you know, stressful 16, 18-hour shooting days, getting 4 hours of sleep in a crappy warehouse loft. You know, so,
right.
It was very difficult to make, but you know, I think it was for the best. The fact that we kind of had this like almost like filmmaking boot camp, stay away sleepovers. So it was good times making it.
Well, there's one actor in there particular that I really dug is the Colonel. Is that what it was? The Colonel, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, the Colonel, Edward X. Young.
Yeah, and I really loved how he put an extra effort in that role in that movie, and that definitely, I mean, just by the way he acted in that movie is definitely a flashback of an 80s actor, of just how his dialogue came out. You know, this movie had so many great stuff about it. It's the mold that you did in the hallway. Now, I normally don't ask these questions, but I'm curious. How long did it take to set that up?
You mean the stop motion, the mold rolling along the walls and stuff like that?
Yeah.
That was all the mold stop motion that's in that film was done after a day of shooting, when the cast and crew, except for the DP, all went home, and me and the DP just stayed behind. But after a 16-hour shoot day, we stayed behind another 6 hours to do that.
Wow.
So it was like at the end of a really long day. It was like I was about to, because when I built all the sets in the warehouse, like I said before, I couldn't build them all at one time because the warehouse was too small. I had to do one set at a time.
Right.
So it was the last day of shooting in the lunchroom, which is where like 80% of the action takes place.
Yeah.
So this was the last chance to do it. So we really just spent 6 to 8 hours doing that, and then afterwards I had to dismantle that entire set and then rebuild a new set in 2 weeks before we started shooting again in all the other locations. So that really didn't take too long, and in fact, if anything, I wish we had done a little more of it because it was effective.
Yeah, it was.
And I would have liked to have used more, but it was just, time was so tight and the schedule was tight, and it was right around Christmas that we were doing that. So, like last chance to get it done. So we, it didn't take that long.
Right.
It was fairly easy.
I like the. I'm assuming he was like a zombie type character, and I liked how he took the orders from the colonel. He just stopped.
Yeah.
That was clever.
He wasn't to no one else, but he's loyal to his colonel.
That was clever. And then, of course,
everyone's favorite character is the colonel. He's definitely got the most comedy.
Even the I don't remember names. I apologize, but even the scientist, the bald guy, what was his name?
He is Dr. Matthew Kane, and the actor is Rick Haynes.
Right, and he's another one. I could swear to God, his character in this movie, I've seen. It's hard to explain. He had that bald head. He had that. Even he had the '80s look. I mean, you done it so well. It's just. I mean, of course, and again, it's pretty simple. If you look back to the '80s pictures or '80s movies, you can get a good idea of how to maneuver it around. But the whole cast was good, especially the part. I mean, I don't want to give too much away in case people didn't see it, but the part where he drank that stuff. You didn't know exactly.
Well, where he what?
Where he drank that.
Oh, right. The mold anti-agent.
Right.
Fungal agent.
And I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen there, but he couldn't have done it any better.
Yeah, Rick Haynes is great, like the nicest guy in the world too. And he is another mustachioed character in the film, and his mustache is actually fake. You probably wouldn't even really notice that. He had the most real-looking fake mustache of the group.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
He has alopecia. He can't grow a mustache.
Okay.
when I first met him and I was interviewing him and auditioning him, I was asking him if he can grow a mustache. He was like, "Yeah, sorry, can't do that." So, but I loved him in the audition, and he just I had to get him a fake mustache, but his actually worked out the best. Dave Hardy's was a little more obvious as far as the fake mustache goes.
Right.
But yeah. I'm a fan of mustaches. I can't really tell you why. I like facial and body hair. I find it interesting, so I made sure everyone had mustaches.
Now, the congressman, you couldn't find anybody who could have acted like that any better.
That's James Murphy, and he is a wonderful actor. He's in some of my shorts.
Yeah, and the bathroom scene. Oh my God! Oh, the green mold. Oh, brother. I mean,
I feel like there's not enough dick in films, to be honest with you. Too much dick. And I just feel like I had to please the other half of the audience. I needed some dick in myself. I'm sorry.
Well, you know what?
I'm not sorry. I'm not apologetic about that.
No, but you know what? There's no movie that had the penis thing in it. Was Cabin Fever 2?
I haven't seen Part 2 yet, but I was a fan of Part 1.
See, a lot of people hate Part 2. I absolutely enjoyed Part 2. I guess. See, to be honest with you, when I watched the first Cabin Fever, I didn't quite get it. I didn't quite like it. And, I mean, this is years ago. And then I went back to my roots a couple of years, about maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, and I watched it again. And, of course, that's before I got into independent horror. That's before I understood, the difference between high end and middle end and low end. Then when I watched Part 2, you got to see that one. I gave it, I think, a 7.5 out of 10, I think it was. I really liked it.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, there's a gross scene. There's a couple gross scenes in there, but check it out. But yeah, is there any other projects going on besides what we talked about after Mold? I mean, are you just going to hang around and just see what happens with Mold?
Well, it's definitely a waiting game with Mold right now. It's been hard to start new projects. I have concepts I want to flesh out, but I'm not even done with Mold yet.
Okay.
It's very close to being done, but it's hard to start a new project when I'm still trying to finish the old one. I don't like leaving, untied strings.
Right.
So I've been just trying to finish Mold. Like the version I sent you, it's not even the final cut.
Okay.
And
right.
I have a composer working on some new tracks, and we're going to do some more Foley. I mean, it's pretty close to being the final cut, but I haven't had a chance to really start working on new projects until I finish this one. And this is, a labor of love for me, and it's really a one-man show, especially at this point in post. I've been doing everything myself, so the process is taking 2 years up to this point now, because usually, in Hollywood, I don't like to compare films to Hollywood because there's really no comparison, but they have 200-300 people working in post, and it still takes 6 months to finish a movie. So me doing everything myself, it's just a long, drawn-out process, and everyone thinks I'm crazy that I'm still working on it. But hey, every time I do a new cut, it gets better. So if it's getting better, then there's no reason to stop. So.
Right, exactly. And
yeah. I'll also say, I mean, the things that I do want to work on as soon as I do wrap up Mold, which I expect to be done, in about 6 weeks to 2 months to be totally having final cut, is I want to work on the script for Mold 2 because I have some great concepts for that.
Nice.
And I want to flesh out that Die by the Sword short I was telling you about.
Yeah.
Film. So those are 2 projects that I have my eyes set on, but I haven't actually begun yet.
Right. Well, one thing I will say, it's fun to do reviews because you can get an idea of what people are interested in. And I've noticed that Mold, every week, there's new people keeps listening to the review, and the numbers keeps getting higher and higher. And I'm so amazed how certain movies catches people's attention. I mean, obviously Char Harden listened to my review. We're good friends and all, and that's probably why she's interested in it, because it takes a review from somebody. I mean, especially if you don't know anything about it, and usually people can sense the common taste. Like if someone has the same taste as I do, obviously they're going to want to watch it because if I liked it. And word of mouth and a review can go a long way. I've come to realize that. But it was a fun film. I'm going to venture down that road and watch it again once I get free time. But Neil, I just want to say it again. It's a fucking gem, and I'm not and I'm not bullshit when I say that. But anything that's 80s or anything that's different, which that movie is definitely different because it has every combination you want. It has comedy, it has gore, it has objects, it has explosions.
It's got a little something for everybody for sure.
Right, and I love the break room real quick. When it's scenes in the break room, it looks so generic 80s. It's funny as shit. I absolutely loved it. And I was like, damn, that looks like my kitchen back in the 80s. But anyway,
it wasn't too hard because I actually, my grandmother passed away during the filming, but I live in my grandmother's house, separate apartment, it's a 3-story house, but she had so much stuff in her house that was from the 70s, 60s, 80s, old stuff. That the TV was hers, and the oven was hers. We got a new oven, so I took the old oven and put it on the set and hooked up to a propane tank to gas. So there's so many things on that set that were actually from my grandmother's house.
That's awesome.
It really did work out pretty well.
That's awesome. The wimpy guy, I guess it was a congressman's helper or whatever.
Rhodes.
That poor guy. That poor guy. But anyways,
that's Nick Russo.
Okay. I apologize. I'm terrible with remembering names. I'm terrible. But
usually I am too. But I know these guys pretty well at this point. So I got their names down.
So now,
but one other thing I do want to say about that 80s feel you keep bringing up is, when I said I love 80s and I definitely wanted to incorporate that style into the film, and that's a big reason why I said it in 84 alongside the technology thing is, when I was thinking about it and how I wanted to portray that 80s feel, at first I was at a loss because, you know, a lot of these 80s films or these new modern films that are trying to be 80s throwbacks, you know, if they take place in the 80s or whatever it is, they have, you know, pop culture they can put in there, you know, all these references or 80s cars or, you know, just whatever it is that they can throw in there, they're able to do that. And with my film, you know, it takes place in a science lab. These are professional government people in uniforms. And I really didn't have any opportunities to insert pop culture in there or even that much of the fashion style of the days. And even in a lot of ways, I couldn't even incorporate the crazy hairstyles I would have because these would be government scientists. They wouldn't even have those crazy hairstyles. So, I was stuck thinking, like, well, what can I do to make this very 80s? And, you know, it took me a while to really just kind of figure it out. But in the end, for me, the best way to do it was to make the movie as fun and zany and over the top as possible. Because a lot of those 80s movies we love from back in the day, I mean, they're so over the top. And they have all these crazy characters that are just, like, unbelievable in reality, you know?
Yep.
But, so, I mean, for me, the best way to get the feel of the 80s was just to have fun with the film and let it be fun and have that come across. And that, in my opinion, that was one of the better decisions I made was just to let it go that way because there was no other way for me to do it. You know, I couldn't like, you know, have like the crazy, whatever the hell people were wearing in the 80s and the big hair. I just couldn't do that. There was no pop culture for me to really stick in, aside from Reagan. Reagan was like my only in.
That was cool, though.
I used that to my best abilities.
That was cool seeing that, though, because that really, really brought it in focus quick of what year it was.
Yeah. It ties it in, and it also ties into the plot well, too. So,
right,
yeah, it worked out. There's no substance or style to it. Self-releasing bold. I'm doing what most filmmakers don't have the balls to do. I'm going right past the distributors. I'm releasing it myself. It should be out, hopefully, by June. I'm going to set up a website, and you'll be able to stream it. And I'll be, you know, sending out a press release when it's all ready. But I'm going to announce it here and now for the first time on Gruesome Herzog that Mold will be released by myself by the beginning of the summer.
Excellent. And what you do is when you're ready to do it, email me the website link, and I'll attach it to the interview, you know, when it's on. That way, in case they do listen to it, they can click right on it and order their copy right then and there.
Right.
All right, brother?
Well,
thank you. Man. Well, thank you very much. You take care of yourself, and have a happy Mold day.
All right, Thanks a lot.
Take care,
Thanks for having me.
Yep, no problem. Take care.